Good morning, everyone. Can we start now? My name is Hung. I'm Vietnamese. By the way, anybody here speaks Vietnamese? Just show your hand. Anybody here speaks Vietnamese? Just show your hand. Oh, come on, Vietnamese is easy. Come on. I'm just kidding, it's not easy at all. I'll talk a little bit about Vietnamese at the end of my talk. Back to work. I'm so excited to be here, share with you my thoughts on listening comprehension. I will talk about a strategy that I call the three-part strategy that may help you improve your listening skill. But first, let's get started with a word. Metacognition. Have you ever encountered this word before? How many of you? Let's show your hand. It's very academic, right? The prefix meta, it means after. And cognition, it is the process by which your understanding, your knowledge is developed. Put all together, it means something like self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-reflection. It's like after doing something unsuccessfully, you take a step back and you look at yourself in hindsight and you may think, wow, so handsome. Just kidding. Why couldn't I hear that word? Why couldn't I understand a sentence? Why couldn't I get the joke? And by doing so, you get a better insight into your problems. And you know, self-knowledge is key for self-improvement. But that is rarely the thing we do in traditional listening class. What do we do in traditional listening class? Well, to warm up, we have some pre-listening activities. Then we listen to the audio for several times, say 2 times, 3 times, and then we have a lot of questions to answer. And then, never get a good score. Cool, I'm good at listening. I'm good to go. But what if I get a bad score? I'm so bad. I'm disappointed. Why? Can you explain me a little bit more about your problems? I don't know. I just know that I'm bad at listening. I need more practice. That's all. You didn't make a step further into your problems. Most of us, we don't usually think about problems. So, in this model, the center is the listening materials. It's not about you. It's not about, well, your problems. And after listening several times, the listening materials, you don't know lots about yourself. So researchers, they find that it is the metacognition that separates successful learners from unsuccessful learners. They find that the learners with high ability, they're more likely to describe their problems. They can tell you about their strengths, about the weaknesses, which may be not the case for learners with low ability. So, self-knowledge is important for improvement. So what we need now is a framework to base on. I will tell you about a listening model that was proposed by a psychologist named Edison in 1995. He proposed his listening model in his book named Cognitive Psychology and Its Implications. In his book, he divided the listening process into 3 phases. The first phase is the perception phase. It has to do with the sound, as you can see. And the second phase is the parsing phase. It has to do with the meaning. You know, you cut the sound into several smaller pieces and you group it together into words, into group of words, that means collocations, and you label them with meaning. And the third phase, that is the utilization phase. That has to do with your background knowledge, your prior knowledge. And there is overlapping zone here. That's why I would like to talk about the vocabulary knowledge. When it comes to vocabulary knowledge, the first question, the all-time question that comes to our mind, that is, how many words do I need to know to understand something, to understand Mr. Bean, to understand Tom and Jerry? So it's just one dimension of vocabulary. There are two dimensions of vocabulary knowledge. It's the quantity, the number of words you know, and the quality, how well do you know them? Just take an example in French, you know, the word bouchon. Bouchon is a type of restaurant in France. Well, if you skim the surface, that's all it's about. Nothing more. But if you have experienced the atmosphere in such a restaurant, you will know that the origin of this type of restaurant is Lyon. And Lyon is the capital of French gastronomy. And if you look at the image of the bouchon, you will see there's a lot of tables outside of the restaurant. And when you hear the word bouchon, there are several other words that appear in your mind. French gastronomy, Lyon, tables outside a restaurant, typical dishes. Okay, so it serves like anchors in your mind to hold the information of the bouchon back in your mind. It's both about the vocabulary, the meaning of bouchon. It's both about your background knowledge about French gastronomy. So it's the overlapping zone here. In general, when you learn some new language, the sound comes to you as an unbroken stream, just like this. And in the first phase, in the perception phase, your brain tries to cut those unbroken sound stream into smaller pieces, just like that, into several syllables. And then, at the second phase, you try to group those syllables, those sounds, into groups. That is a word, and you label it with meaning. And you may group several words together to form a collocation, and you label it with meaning. And how do we know, in the first phase, where one word begins, where a word ends? It varies according to the language. Researchers found that the way we realize a word in English and in German is different from the way we recognize a word in French. In English and in German, we heavily rely on the stress pattern. Well, most of the time we stress on the first syllable, for example, but that's not the case in French. In French, most of the time we stress the last syllable. So, with French, we heavily rely on the recognition of the syllable. That leads to a phenomenon which is called apocope. A-P-O-C-O-P-E. Apocope. That is, we leave out the last syllables of a word. For example, instead of saying dégueulasse, In French, we say dégueu. Instead of saying le petit déjeuner, we say le petit déj. So we leave out the last sounds, and we still understand because we rely on the syllable. We recognize the first syllables, okay, we're good to go. We recognize the word. And in the third phase, the utilization, we try to enrich the input information by adding our prior knowledge to it. And now the information is processed in your mind, in your perspective. Let's take an example. Just look at an image. What do you think about an image? Tell me a big lie. Yesterday, I saw John Cena. Anyone here think it's a joke? Just show your hand. Because it's a joke. Nobody here. Anyone here knows who is John Cena? What is he famous for? He's a wrestler, right? And what is his famous saying? I can see you. So, if you know about John Cena, if you know about his famous saying, it's your background knowledge, it's your prior knowledge, and then you enrich this image with your prior knowledge. You provide it with context, and then you realize it. Wow, it's a joke. It depends on your background knowledge, because you all understand the sentence. Yeah, but well, you need background knowledge to understand it as a joke. So we already have a framework to base on. How do we evaluate our problems? How do we locate our problems? So I propose a model with a correction. The correction can be anything. It can be the transcript in an interview. It can be the subtitle, a YouTube video. And if you like a video so much, but you don't have a subtitle, you can go to this website, rhinospy.com, and you can ask for transcript. And you also can provide transcript for the videos that is your mother tongue or in the languages that you speak so well. So the correction plays an important role in this model because you can check your understanding the words you heard with the correction. Did I hear it correctly? First, you will hear the listening materials several times without correction. Okay, the first time you hear it, you get an overview of the three phases. If you don't understand something at the first time, okay, there is maybe a problem in maybe the first phase, the second phase, the third phase, I don't know. So just give it a try. You listen 2 more times without corrections. That is 2 more times for your perception phase. If you can understand it after 3 times of listening, okay, you have problems with the perception phase. Maybe it's about your attention. Maybe. So then, at the fourth time, you look at the correction at the same time of listening. And you try to read the word at the same time, and do I know this word? Well, I know all the words, but I don't get it. At this moment, when you look at the correction, a lot of questions, a lot of judgments will pop up in your mind because you check what you heard with what is true. Did I hear this word correctly? I know this word, but I didn't recognize it. And the center of this model is about you, is about getting a better self-awareness. It's not about the listening materials. So after doing so, you must get a better self-awareness to fix your problem. So we already have a framework to base on. We know how to locate our problems. So let's move on to the most common problems that we learners encounter. I cannot check the sound streams. It's very common, right? Very clearly, it has to do with the perception phase. But there's a concept that I should talk about is connected speech. Normally, in general, when we learn a word, it is a word alone. It is isolated. It's not in the context of a sentence. But when it is put into a sentence, the pronunciation, it may be changed. For example, this phrase in French, je ne sais pas quand il va y aller. But if we say it fast, it becomes je sais pas quand il va y aller. It changed. It is the reduced form. Je ne sais pas, it becomes je sais pas. And quand is connected with in by T sound. Cantine. It's not cantine. It's cantine. And the Y here is connected to aller. Je sais pas quand il va y aller. So it is changed. I forget quickly what I heard. So what do you think about it? Where is the problem? The first phase, the second phase, or the third phase? The second phase? Do you agree? Okay. So it is suggested that there are maybe too many new words in a sentence, and the new words occupy all the spare room in your short-term memory that you cannot retain the word, the meaning you already processed. And that is the reason why you quickly forget what you already understand, already processed. So it may be about the quantity, the first dimension of vocabulary knowledge. But I have another explanation for this problem. It has to do with your short-term memory. And when it comes to memory, it has to do with connections. You cannot make connections when you process something. For example, I told you about bouchon. And when it is at a shallow level, without the anchor already in your mind about French gastronomy, about Lyon, about tables outside restaurants, about typical dishes, you cannot retain the meaning of bouchon. Just fly away. It doesn't stay there in your mind. So I think this has to do with two kinds of problems. The problems with the quantity of your vocabulary knowledge, and the problem with the quality of your vocabulary knowledge. It depends on cases. I don't recognize the words. I know. It has to do with sight and sound relationship. Maybe you learn that word by reading. Maybe you know how to write that word, but you don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Because for some language, it's very The pronunciation may be so illogical. For example, English. If you don't know the word, maybe you pronounce it incorrectly. And it has to do maybe with connected speech, because the words are linked together and they change the sound. During listening, although some words sound familiar, it is difficult for me to recall the meaning immediately. It has to do with the second dimension of vocabulary knowledge, the depth. Okay, you understand the word, but you don't understand the word deeply. For example, I may know this man. Okay, I met this man before, but I don't remember his name. Maybe I know him, because you know him not so well. You rarely meet him. So when you meet him again, you don't recognize him. You don't remember his name. Okay, that's normal. So it has to do with your second dimension of knowledge. That is the depth. I can understand most of the words, but I can't join them together and understand whole sentence meaning. Where is the problem? The third phase, the second phase, the first phase. Who think is about the second phase? Should show your hand. Who think is about the third phase? Should show your hand. Cool. So you may be, okay, just go to a medical conference in your mother tongue. You may understand the language the speakers say, but you don't understand the content of the speech because you have no background of medical language about the technical jargons. So it has to do with the context, with the background knowledge. So if you encounter this problem, you should find some more papers, you should find some more books to read about the topics so you can upgrade your background knowledge, and then you will understand it better the next time. So it's all about the listening comprehension, right? And Vietnamese is very difficult for listening comprehension, I think. It is the tones that both makes the beauty and the difficulty for learners. So I'm a native speaker. I have never ever encountered something like I need to improve my listening skill for Vietnamese. Well, I don't recognize the tones. What should I do now? I have never ever encountered those things. But I did a lot of research and I know the language, so I hope it's not so biased. And I hope you find it interesting if you're interested in learning Vietnamese. I won't talk about the utilization because it's about the background knowledge. I will focus on the first two phases. It's about the perception and the processing, you know? Like all the languages, we have two dimensions of knowledge. But there is one feature that can separate Vietnamese from other languages. That is, Vietnamese is a monosyllabic language. That means that every word in Vietnamese contains only one syllable. Hôm, nay, tôi, đi, học. Very simple. Because it's so simple, it's very flexible. You have so many combinations with the words. I'll take an example. Thế hệ trẻ tham gia làm tình nguyện vì họ muốn đóng góp cho xã hội. Okay? Just one syllable for each word. And we can group the one syllable word to a bigger word with meaning. Here, Tình nguyện is doing the volunteers with two monosyllable words, as you can see. So, young generation, they want to do volunteers. They want to do volunteer work because they want to contribute to society. What if we leave out a word? What if we miss a word in this sentence? That wants to be a problem, right? So maybe I missed this word. And now it changed to thế hệ trẻ tham gia làm tình vì họ muốn đóng góp cho xã hội. It changed the meaning. Now young generation, they want to make love to contribute to society. It changed. Okay, so just remember when you learn Vietnamese, the words are very flexible. And you need to learn the words in blocks, maybe, because it may change because of the flexibilities, yeah. And if you miss one word, it can change the meaning. So, if you miss this word, you can also understand correctly by the third phase. That is the utilization, because you already know the context. And you have already some expectation in your mind. And if you know about this word, làm tình nguyện, you can predict, okay, maybe I need this word. Maybe this speaker is not so rude. And when it comes to tone, there are 6 tones in Vietnamese. Are you ready to learn Vietnamese from scratch? Okay, let's begin. Okay, there's a problem with that. The first tone is ngang, is A1. As you can see, ma. It's very flat, ma. And the second tone is A2, huỳnh. It's down. Ma. Ma, ma. And the B1 is sắc. It's up, up. Ma. Ma, ma, ma. And the fourth tone is B2, nặng, mã, mã. And the fifth tone is high, is down and up. High, in slow motion. High. And in normal speed, mã, mã. And the sixth tone is ngã. It's up and down, but higher than hỏi. Ngã, ngã. So, let's repeat it. Ma, 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 ma. You realize the difficulty because you don't have such concept in your mind if you don't speak a tonal language. So you have to build that concept in your mind about the sound. Okay? There are a lot of accents in Vietnamese, but you may hear mainly about 2 accents, the northern accent and the southern accent. I'm from Ho Chi Minh City, so I speak with southern accent. As you can see, the southern accent, the southern speaker, they pronounce the hỏi, the C1, and the ngã, the C2, the same way. But the speaker with northern accent, they pronounce C1 and C2 differently, slightly differently. So, to understand a speaker with southern accents, you should know the word because you have to predict what it is about. You have to know the context. You have some expectations in your mind about whether it is C1, whether it is C2, but it is easier to understand the tones of a speaker with northern accent. So if you ask me which accent should I choose to begin with Vietnamese tone, I would recommend you should learn with a speaker with northern accent because it's more easier for you to recognize the difference of the tones. However, like any other language, Vietnamese has reduced form. And sometimes in reduced form, it changes the tone. For example, có một cái, there is only one thing, its meaning. There's only one thing. Có một cái is sắc. It's A2. Then it's move on to B1. Then it's move on to A2. So A2, B2, and A2. Có một cái. And then in reduced form, in normal speech, it becomes có một cái. In slow motion. Có một cái. Có một cái. I don't pronounce the một word. The B2. I don't pronounce the B2. So it becomes A2. Sorry, it becomes B1, A2, B1. At first it's B1, B2, B1. At first it is B1, B2, B1. Now it becomes B1, A2, B1 because I don't pronounce the B2 word and I change the tone when I reduce the form like that. Có một cái becomes có một cái. So the tone may change. So it's okay? It's been easy? So we've gone through a lot of things. We know that we should improve our self-awareness because it's good for improvement. We have a framework to base on. We already know how to locate our problems. And we've gone through the most common problems with learners. And we learn Vietnamese from scratch. And you may forget a lot of things when you leave this room. But there is one thing that I think you should keep in mind. That is, understanding yourself is key for improvement. Thanks for listening. Do you have any questions?
I don't have questions in Slido, but maybe some from audience.
It's so clear. Have you ever encountered some? Yeah.
Just a quick question. So, how do you improve your ability to parse when you first start learning? How do you improve chunking? Sorry. Okay, I should know better.
How do I improve,
how do you improve your
the perception
chunking?
phase?
Yeah. So when it's
Okay.
coming in at you, how do you figure out where the word endings are, and how do you improve that?
There are two methods that are proven because it is shown that improves your perception phase, your capacity to chunk the sound stream. And they are shadowing technique. Have you ever heard of this technique before? Shadowing technique. That is, you repeat the sound of the speaker at the same time. Okay, it's kind of a process for interpreters, but it may improve your chunking ability. And it, there is a paper about it. Its title is "Who Benefits from Shadowing Technique?" And it was shown that it was the learners with beginning level that benefit from it the most, from shadowing technique. And the second method that I would recommend to you is the dictation. Dictation is very easy, but very helpful. And the third method that is not that was not put on research, but I think it may be helpful for you, it is repetition. And it is suggested that shadowing technique is more helpful than dictation, and dictation is more helpful than repetition.
Also, we have one question on Slido. Did you, as a Southern Vietnamese speaker, ever have problems understanding Northern speakers? Did you improve your dialect comprehension?
I'm sorry, do I understand the other accents in Vietnamese? Do I understand it correctly? I do. At first, I'm not familiar with the way the people from the middle of Vietnam they pronounce the tone, because it's very different. It changed. It's not so simple like that. It varies according to the accents. So, for example, people from Hue is a province. They pronounce the tone differently. So when I first heard them, I encountered some difficulties, but very quickly, because I know already the language, I know the word, and I have a lot of expectations in my mind. So it is the parsing phase that helped me improve the perception phase. And the next time, well, the second time, I can understand them very well, I think. So with Vietnamese, it may be the parsing phase that can help you with the perception phase at first.
And one more question. What are your thoughts on slowed down recording for initial parsing?
I think it's important to learn a language from scratch with a speaker who speaks very slowly, to get familiar with the elemental sound. At first, you don't know much about the elemental sounds, the key sounds in the language, so that you cannot recognize them in syllable. You cannot chunk them when you do not know the elemental sound. So, at the first phase, I think it is a good solution, a good idea to begin with a slow speaker, and then just speed up. Because if you work only with a slow speaker, at some times you will be on a plateau. You don't make a progression. So I think at the beginning, yeah, it's a good solution. But then you should speed up.
Very interesting talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the most interesting and most difficult things to cope with as a teacher of English is this problem that you mentioned of when people are listening, they get totally overwhelmed by the number of new words that they don't understand, and they focus on the words that they don't understand rather than the words that they do understand. And I don't know whether you have any, you can tell them again and again, focus on the words that you do understand, but it doesn't always work. Have you got any suggestions to help with that problem?
Okay. If you got so many new words in a sentence, and there are some keywords that you don't know, okay, it may be the utilization, the context may provide you with some expectation. And it is that expectation that will lead you to understanding. For example, I started learning German a week ago. So when you go to a restaurant, you may have a script already in your mind. A waiter will come to you, hello, what you like for dinner? Here's the menu. What would you like to drink? Something like that. And you just focus on some keywords such as drink, eat, dinner, something like that. You have already the script in your mind. That is your background knowledge. And that's how you deal with a lack of vocabulary. When you're just in front of a speaker, speak so fast, and there's a lot of words you do not know. You have to rely on the third phase, the utilization phase. And it is if you're working alone, you can look up for words, okay, is a way to improve your vocabulary knowledge. But in daily conversation, if you have no other solution, you have to rely on your background knowledge to get a sense of it. Any other questions?
Couldn't you do exactly the opposite? Stop caring about the meaning and learn to pass the words. And when you then can pass the words, some words you know will pop up in your mind, but those words you don't know yet will just slow you down. You shouldn't care about them until you can recognize that there are words.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understand you correctly. Is the explanation right?
If you listen to a long series of you should be able to cut it down to into your second phase to recognize there are words. Yes, but if you then waste your time on trying to guess the meaning of words you don't know yet, you lose the next 5 or 6 words. Stop caring about whether you understand all the words and just try to get those next 5 words.
I think it's a good way to practice. It is, we group the idea. You know, we put several words into a group that is an idea, and then we move on to the next idea. Okay, I don't know this idea, those several words. I missed this idea, but I know the second idea. I missed the third idea, but I know the fourth idea. When I was at the airport of Vienna, I tried to ask for directions in German. You know, it was very hard. So I tried to focus on several keywords like geradeaus, this is go straight ahead, or nach rechts, just turn right. I just focus on that. And when a native speaker, it told me a lot. And I just focus on, well, there are 3 ideas. Three ideas in his several sentences. That is, just go ahead and then turn right, and then I missed the third idea. But I don't care, because I know how to get to the bus station. Okay, so it's a good idea to group several words into ideas. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the discussion.